Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to be your guide today because we are diving into something really fascinating. We're going to unpack a highly provocative, totally countercultural text from 2010, written by an author named Xu Feng. We're going to visually and logically map out his whole argument together just to see exactly how it ticks. Now, right off the bat, because the source material challenges some very deeply held societal norms, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. We're just impartially examining his claims today. We're not taking sides, we're not endorsing it, and we're not condemning it. We're just here to dig into the wild architecture of this highly unconventional philosophy. Okay, let's dive right into this, because this quote right here, this is the anchor for everything we are about to explore. The most selfish are those who live for others. It's a completely jarring paradox, right? I mean, think about everything we're taught as kids. From day one, we're told that putting others first is the ultimate virtue. It's the gold standard. But Zafong sets up this totally contrarian premise, basically suggesting that what we call selflessness is in reality the ultimate form of selfishness.
All right, section 1, the paradox of altruism.
So the text makes its first massive logical leap right here. It takes that universally accepted norm, the idea that living for others is good, and completely flips it, framing it as a destructive force. The claim is that by constantly singing the praises of altruism, society is actually creating a world full of lies and deceit. I'm going to ask you to temporarily step into the author's worldview with me for a second. If everyone is expected to be completely selfless, but human nature is inherently self-focused, well, then society is essentially forcing everyone to lie about their true motives. According to Xu Feng, this kind of societal pressure doesn't actually create good people. It just creates really good actors.
And Xu Feng, he doesn't pull any punches with his terminology here. He actually labels the person who claims to live for others as a criminal altruist. Yeah, criminal. He uses that extreme term because the text views these altruistic claims as a literal mask for deep, hypocritical selfishness. In his view, claiming to live for others isn't some noble badge of honor. It's a deceptive crime against authenticity.
Moving on to section 2, nature's rule of self. And this brilliantly illustrates the underlying justification for his whole philosophy. He actually roots this in biology and the laws of nature. On the left, imagine a peach tree. Its natural biological purpose is just to produce peaches and maintain its own individual character, right? And on the right, we have a grapevine. Xu Feng argues that if the peach tree suddenly decides to live for the grapevine instead of just being a peach tree, it not only loses its own inherent value, but it actually becomes a super intrusive, unhelpful neighbor. It rudely interferes with the grapevine's natural freedom. By trying to be selfless, the peach tree literally becomes a disruptive force in nature. But he doesn't stop at biology. He expands this argument all the way down to physics. The text claims that every single molecule must act selfishly. It has to fight to maintain its own unique structure. If molecules stopped being selfish and just stopped holding themselves together, the entire universe would regress into a random, chaotic soup. Think about the sheer scale of that claim for a second. Prioritizing your own existence isn't just some psychological self-help theory to him. He's pitching it as a fundamental law of survival and physics. Which brings us to section 3, the myth of selflessness. The text spares absolutely no one in this critique. The author systematically tears down all our major historical and cultural symbols of self-sacrifice. Xu Feng asserts that literally no one truly lives for others. Not emperors ruling their lands, not even parents raising their own children. He even goes as far as to say that major religious figures like Christ Jesus and Buddha Shakyamuni were not actually living for others. And what I find absolutely fascinating here, he actually includes himself on the list. As the guide of his own community, Life Chan Yuan, he explicitly states that he doesn't do his work for others. He does it for his own personal achievement. At their root, everyone is living for themselves.
So if nobody is actually living for others, who on earth are all these people constantly claiming that they do? Well, Xu Feng's critique here is remarkably harsh. He outlines that those who vocally claim to be selfless are usually the false and crafty, or the incompetent who lack true independence. He also points the finger at those who secretly want to control or impose their will on other people, and those who just want to push blame. Basically, the text attributes deeply manipulative motives to the exact same people that society usually puts up on a pedestal. Let's look at section 4, altruists as social criminals. So the crucial point is exactly how this supposed selflessness actively harms us. We can clearly walk through Zefeng's three-step breakdown of altruistic harm right here. First off, when you supposedly live for others, you invisibly burden them with a really heavy emotional debt. Suddenly, they feel forced to be grateful and serve you. Second, this theoretical helping induces a sense of guilt and shame, which actively suppresses the other person's natural freedom to bloom as an individual. And third, looking at the macro level, it disturbs the Tao, the universal order. By injecting lies and deception into relationships under the guise of helping, you actually create widespread social disorder.
All right, Section 5, Perfecting the Self First.
Having laid out this really intense critique, the narrative shifts toward the author's proposed solution, which is extreme self-reliance. And the logic presented here is incredibly direct. Seriously, how can you possibly bring true joy or freedom or help to anyone else if you don't even know who you are? If you're walking around filled with jealousy, anger, or complaints, or if you can't even solve your own basic survival problems, the text argues you have absolutely nothing of value to offer anyone else. You've got to resolve your own pain and perfect your own existence first.
Section 6, The Life Chanyun Experiment. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this wasn't just some abstract thought experiment on paper. Zhu Feng actually tested this radical theory out in a real-world setting. To do this, Life Chanyun founded a second home life pattern, and the operational rules were literally the exact opposite of what you'd see in a traditional commune. Rule 1, do not bother with others' business. Rule 2, do not help unless help is explicitly asked for. And the biggest one, consider yourself first. Individuals in this community explicitly prioritize their own needs and their own individual natures above absolutely everything else.
And we need to point out, this wasn't just a quick weekend retreat. We are talking about nearly 100 people living together under these strict, self-focused rules for more than 9 years. That gives us real, quantitative data to look at. It emphasizes that this is a lived, multi-year social psychological experiment. It takes this wild theory of extreme self-interest completely out of the realm of abstract philosophy and puts it right into raw daily human practice. Now, you might expect a society where everyone flat out refuses to live for each other to resemble a chaotic, selfish free-for-all, right? Just total anarchy. But according to Zhu Feng, rather than descending into chaos, it became an orderly, happy, free, and peaceful paradise. The text neutrally reports that when everyone simply took responsibility for themselves and stopped constantly interfering with each other, the community utterly flourished. Which brings us to the author's ultimate polarizing conclusion. Read this quote with me. People who want to confer benefit on society should live for themselves first, and people who want to commit sin should live for others. It is a complete and total 180-degree inversion of traditional morality, cemented right there in the source material. Doing good means focusing on yourself. Doing evil means focusing on others. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, really provocative question to think about. Can a society of purely self-interested individuals truly create a paradise, like the text claims? Or is this just another form of idealism masking human flaws? I highly encourage you to critically evaluate Zhu Feng's claims and the logic we've mapped out today. It certainly forces us to question the very foundations of why we do what we do, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this incredibly fascinating material today. And definitely keep exploring those philosophical boundaries.